Right, so I'm Paul, he's Doug.
I'm Paul. I'm Paul, this is Doug, and we are Team Maanschijn. And we're just two chaps making wine in a cooler climate, south of Cape Town. We grew up in Cape Town. We were at high school together, played a bit of rugby as well together. Doug used to scrum on my haunches here. And we both ended up at Stellenbosch University where we studied wine. Doug was a year ahead of me, but sort of post-studies, we did some travels and at university we used to hang out quite a bit. And post-university we went on some travels and to different parts of the world, but ultimately reconvened back in Stellenbosch working on two different estates which were quite close in proximity to one another. And during those sort of formative years we're again spending a bit of time together.
Drinking lots of wine together as well.
A lot of braaiing, which is the South African barbecue, and drinking a lot of wine, having good times. And we were super excited with the industry and wine in general. And I sort of asked the smaller boutique producer that I was working for at the time if we could make a barrel of wine. We're quite thirsty and poor at the time.
Terrible timing. We got Anthony Bishop, the farm manager, coming past.
Cheers, bye guys.
Cheers, Max.
And a lovely,
there we go.
A lovely old Land Rover. We're poor and thirsty at the time back then, and needed wine for subsistence. So I asked if we could make a barrel or two, and he said yes. So we made some, and it turned out pretty nicely.
I think so.
And there was no intention to start a wine business from this, but later in that year we were sort of connected with a wine bar in Cape Town, and sort of the proprietor there eventually got a taste and said, "This is great, guys. Put a label on it and I'll sell it." So that was the genesis. And a few weeks after that, I think Doug called me. I was actually overseas about to start some studies, and Doug said, "There's this old stable on a family property. Maybe we can make some wine in there." So
yeah. Yeah. So the old stable that we moved into had just sort of been there was a fire that swept through here, and they just put a new roof on and fixed it up, and no one knew what to actually do with the place. And that's when I called Paul, and we sort of snuck in there with a few buckets and shovels. At the time we didn't have actually the most high-tech equipment. I think we had a press made out of a washing machine, and old barrels. Surprisingly, the wines turned out the way they did, but we made it work, and we've just sort of been growing organically since then, and it all just happened without planning, too much planning involved, really. We haven't been kicked out since.
So what is a Cape White blend? It's a super exciting category that has emerged in the Cape. Whilst it has emerged, it's not completely defined in legislation yet, but the idea is that it should be a blend that's based on Chenin Blanc, minimum 15%, maximum 85%. So Chenin is loosely the framework you build the wine from, and we've decided to do a slightly different take on a Cape White blend in that we actually let it lead by Sauvignon Blanc. How could we not? We have this insane organic vineyard. The sea spray character as well. I mean,
definitely plays a part. I mean, the Sauvignon Blanc, obviously in the Method Ancestral, as you mentioned, but also in the Herbarium Cape White, that the component that goes in there brings that salinity to the wine and that sort of mineral character. And I've no doubt it's definitely coming in off the sea breeze. I mean, the ocean's also just behind the lagoon as well, literally just on the other side of that hill there.
So we've actually led it by Sauvignon Blanc, and we did something even naughtier. We actually Chenin's now the third leading variety in this blend. The second is Semillon. Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon are the two most varieties that are planted in this cooler Walker Bay. So we thought it would give the wine perhaps better identity. So yeah, it's led by Sauvignon Blanc, then Semillon, Chenin Blanc, and then finished off with Chardonnay. So more noble varieties, and yeah, we did our best to blend it in a way where there's seamless transition, sort of from entry to finish, and yeah, it's a wine of texture. It's actually probably the most fruit forward vintage we've ever released. They usually come out a bit more savory and saline. The salinity comes about.
Takes a bit of time for that to
takes about
come
six to 12 months after bottling to reveal itself.
Yeah.
So still very primary, fruit forward, but then you get that little bit of flintiness, saltiness coming through a little bit later on after some bottle aging, which brings a lot of complexity to the wine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of texture to it right now, though, already.
Yeah.
Peach and pear, but then it's like it's got a fair amount of weight in the mid palate.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's addition of the Chardonnay, which came into play for the first time in 2022, has, I think for me, from a textural point of view, has added a lot. Even though it's about 10% of the blend, it brings a lot to the table.
And yeah, it's at modest 13.5% in alcohol, which for us is a pretty sweet balance, and it gives great balance between texture and acidity, natural acidity as well. Being a cooler climate, cooler days, cooler nights, we're just rewarded with great sort of fruit. And yeah, fermented naturally. Some people call it lazy by not doing all these things, but it's actually calculated.
10 times harder.
Yeah. 10 times more stressful as well. That's the main thing. But yeah, I mean, natural ferments, all the barrels, larger format now. Moved everything across to the big barrels, and it left unsulfured just on its fine knees for about 9-10 months, and then straight in the bottle. Otherwise, unfined, minimal filtration, very coarse filtration. That's it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the glass we have our 2023 Herbarium Cape Red, and it's a Cape blend, but now instead of white, it's a red Cape blend. Cape Red blend in this country is a little bit more defined than the Cape White blend category. The blend must be led by Pinotage, minimum of 30% and max of 70%. So it's a little bit more stringent in the rules, but there's still quite a bit of freedom to play around. The Pinotage that leads this blend is from Stanford, or the Stanford Foothills, which is an area that's just further east of where we're standing now, on south-facing slopes and quite sandy soils, and just below the Cabernet Mountains as well. So there's this wonderful cooling effect. It's very different to Pinotage from warmer regions in that it hangs on the fruit for a little bit, on the vine for a little bit, or the fruit hangs on the vine for a little bit longer. And when we've worked with it, the characters we've previously, or that we eke out from this vineyard, are more Pinot without the savory character you typically find with Pinot. So I think we believe at least it's more true to its lineage. Mm-hmm. And after the Pinotage, we have Syrah. Of course, it's just a wonderful variety that works so well in the Cape, and especially from the cooler sites here. And then we have Mourvedre, really, really interesting grape. The character we joke that it gives us from the fresh, just by itself from barrel, is a mixture all in the mouth at the same time. A bit of rooibos, black tea, some cranberry juice, and a bit of charcuterie, salami, that kind of fattiness. Mm-hmm. This blend is rounded off by Cabernet Franc, which is a new addition to this blend, and one that we wanted to work with to bring in a little bit of a savory character as well and enhance the earthiness of this wine. But you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, the Cab Franc, I think from a mouthfeel perspective, it brings that real fine tannin, a little bit of pencil shavings, all of that. Mm-hmm. But it's a grape we've been excited to work with for a while now. It's quite tricky to get your hands on in this neck of the woods. There's actually quite a bit of it around, but I think people hold on to it pretty tightly. They love their Cab Franc around here. But we've managed to find some from Bot River, which I think is a great site for it. A little bit warmer, a little bit more sun exposure on that side, north facing or more northerly facing slope, and yeah, it's been I think this is, I guess, the proof in the pudding in terms of what it's brought to the blend compared to the 2022s. And I think this, for me, is looking, I'm especially excited about where this sort of Herbarium Cape Red is going.
This is really good. It's
Thank you.
It's like not a very descriptive way of putting it, but it's just really tasty. It's
So sort of,
Cabernet Franc really like it's a perfect like addition to this.
I think it's just got that very particular structure to it, which brings tightness and focus to the wine.
Yeah.
I find it's just sort of.
But it fleshes it out. Like it's not like any of the grapes you had in there were like weak grapes whatsoever. But there's like a finished roundness.
It's
just a little bit more like it's like tighten it up. Just and we're talking about like fine tuning here. I mean, it hasn't changed the wine in its entirety. It's just all these little subtle.
I think it's almost left sort of I'll use the word. It's left the teenagers and grown up. It's a touch more grown up with that Cab Franc, with that, as Doug mentioned, with that structure and especially with the flavors, it brings in those subtle pencil shavings, almost like a cedarwood kind of thing.
Yep.
But still, it's really modest again at 13.5 alcohol, but it has a wonderful firm structure as well.
Yeah.
So,
And very, I think, quite representative of a cooler climate red wine as well. I mean, this is by no means a blockbuster, ripe, heavy red, but it's got structure, it's got complexity, maybe just, but at the same time, elegance and, power, elegant power. So sort of expand in that sense.
It's like power and grace. If you get that like in Bordeaux, which this is not a Bordeaux blend, but that's what makes Bordeaux so great is you have a wine like Cabernet based or Cabernet Franc based that can age for 40, 50 years, and at release it's fresh and right on its feet.
For sure.
It's a power and grace like blend, But I think, like you said, it's cool climate, fresh. It's like red flowers and like some of that kind of kelpiness, this kind of iodine quality, and then that Cabernet. But like, even though it is cool climate, it's definitely elegant wine. I think the fleshy texture will make people who look for a richer style of wines like be down with it. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can please people who want rich because of the texture, but people who want nuance and elegance because of just how the wine is and
the
cool
structure in
climate.
that.
It's amazing.
sure.
Yeah,
Thank you,
good work,
Peter.
guys.
Yeah.
This is delicious.
Cheers.
It's wild that the 23 red feels like at this point more ready to drink, right? The white's
Feels
still
drinkable.
coming into itself.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
just
yeah,
seems
yeah.
very backwards. It's
weird.
interesting. Yeah.
Wine is a weird thing.
But wine is an especially weird thing. The first 3 months after bottling, in my opinion, you actually, it's often the time you want to stay away from the bottles and you want to just give it time to figure itself out. It's going through its teenage years. It's very confused, trying to find itself. And then after that, you can sort of really taste it for what it's going to be.
I'm like very much reminded of when we met at Leo's the first time, just randomly. I tasted your red there, and I was like, "Fuck, these are really good wines." Like, just kind of getting that excitement back again. Tasting these vintages. It's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.